Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're continuing on with our quest to do all of our spring planting season preparations. So this video is part 3. At some point this morning, we are going to be pulling out our field cultivators and then our vertical till. We need to get those pulled out of the barn, hooked up and fully serviced. That way, if we plant anytime soon, which there's a really good possibility, we'll have them ready. If we miss the next rain we have in the forecast, and that is a very big if, we have a few fields that may plant this weekend. I'm not going to say any more about that because it's really highly unlikely that the opportunity will present itself. We like to be prepared though in case it does come to fruition. At the moment though, we have a much more pressing matter to take care of before we even think about pulling those field cultivators out, and that's a tile blockage on one of our farms. We need to ensure that this tile is unblocked. That way this farm drains and is ready to plant when the conditions are right. We are gonna head over, take a look at that, and hopefully get this problem resolved. Everyone, don't forget, we are going for 1,000 likes on every video this planting season. Do your part down below, smash that like button, helps me out a ton. Let's get to work. Oh, and you can definitely see the boss did organize his seed a little bit more. It looks like a lot less seed when it's stacked vertically, but we are still missing a bunch. I'm actually surprised at this point in the year that we don't have all of our seed in, specifically our DeKalb corn and our Asgrow beans. Hopefully they come soon, we may need them. Every time you work on a tile, there's one tool you always need, the tile probe. Okay, here's what we're working with. This may look like where the water just runs across the field, but if you look on the other side, there's no water crossing the culvert. What is happening right here is that the tile is plugged at some point along here. Let me summarize the problem we're running to out in this farm. About a third of a mile to the east there, we have a wet spot out in this field that has one of these tile inlets just like this. Dad noticed the other day that that wet spot was not draining at its normal speed. And we're talking about a ponding area in a field that holds a pretty significant amount of water. Without a tile inlet like that, especially one not running at its full capacity, it could stay wet for weeks. We ran some diagnostics. We went all the way here where it outlets, probably 2/3 of a mile away to the west of where the tile starts at, and noticed that the outlet was only running at 25 to 30% capacity. We start to take a rough look at where the tile runs through the field and notice something oddly peculiar, and that is that there's water running out right here. You'd think because there's a culvert here, that's just the natural way water runs, but there's no water crossing the road right now. What that means is all of this water right here is from that tile up there bubbling out right here. There's so much head pressure from the weight of the water uphill as it's trying to come down and hits a blockage in the tile here somewhere. It finds the weakest structural point, pushes the water out through the surface. At one point in time, there was a lot more water coming out. It has kind of subsided a little bit just because the pond has finally drained to the point where there's not as much pressure on it. It's not super obvious now where it was bubbling, but it was coming out right in this region. I'm sure you're wondering, why did this occur? Well, a large majority of tile ran out in our fields over 30 years ago was all put in using clay tiles. Clay tiles were the best technology at the time because plastic did not exist, but in terms of long-term structural integrity, it just kind of falls apart. As the ground shifts, heavy equipment rolls over the top, the tile pieces get jarred apart, they cave a little bit, and then all of a sudden they start to fall in and cause plugs like this. Now there's always the off chance that a raccoon or some other rascal animal crawled in the outlet, got stuck, and died. I would presume though that the clay tiles collapsed. Dad and I already did some preemptive scouting in this field across the road, which is not ours, and noticed a few tile holes. A sign of a tile that's deteriorating. Hopefully it's not a large section so we don't have to bring a tile plow out and replace the whole thing. If we patch the areas that have caved in, it should run us for the next year or two. Why are we fixing a tile on someone else's property? Well, it's pretty darn important for us too. It drains our massive pond. Modern technology kind of fixes this problem, or at least alleviates it for a much longer time. They use long 100-foot strands of plastic tile. It is much more durable and it's not going to get jarred apart like this clay tile does. We're gonna do some probing right here and locate the tile. That way, if we need to get a backhoe out here or something else, we know exactly where to dig. And for a project like this, you need your mud boots. Well, mine have had their better days. They're kind of falling apart. And our probe. last long. We're trying to determine where along here it's plugged at. Realistically, it could be anywhere between here and the nearest tile hole that we found the other day. If we poke through the tile with a tile probe in an area where it's not plugged, the water should drain down. Like right there, Dad just poked through.
It's draining
and you
down.
can see it draining. Right there, it's swirling around, which theoretically should mean that it's not plugged from here on, and that the plug would have to be somewhere in here. It's not always that simple though. At this point in the project, we have one big hurdle that we really cannot overcome on our own. We can't bring the backhoe out here and dig without all this being located. You never want to dig anywhere at all without at least first calling a location service, because God forbid you hit a line out there, either cost you a lot of money or kill you. So this will be postponed until they get out here. We've already had 2 things located. That was just they confirmed there's no sewer and there was no water lines here. Still could be gas, phone, maybe something else that we don't know of. Fairly certain there's nothing here, but you'd rather be safe than sorry, especially in something like this. We're gonna head back over and start to work on pulling out those field cultivators. First thing we're going to pull out is the vertical till. We're going to hook up this 9460R. It will stay hooked up for the time being. We may have to use it to level off some fields. Then we'll start to worry about pulling out our other 2 field cultivators. We'll probably pull them outside and just unhook them and not worry about them. We have to be kind of careful because they're packed in here pretty tight. Tight enough to lose some paint, it looks like. Told you we'd lose a little bit of paint. This is going to be a tight squeeze to make it with the tractor not hitting that side of the door and the vertical till not clipping this side of the door. We got it in here, so we should be able to get it out. Because our siding in the barn a little bit. Into the next one, we gotta crank the hitch down and get it up so we get the vertical till under it. Weird place to store the pin. Hydraulics hooked up. We should be good to go. I would not be surprised if there was a flat tire. Tires are good, at least visually. Here in the barn, lifting it out. This would be a lot easier if we could use the north door and not have to use the east door all the time. But we don't actually have access to the north door because the harvest doors are blocking it. Don't ask why, I'm not in charge. 6 for 6 on tires. 8 for 8 now. The working width on this field cultivator is 44 foot wide. We're going to unhook this here for now. That way we can get the other field cultivator out. And if we need to service this one, it's outside. Heck, even a good rain or two would clean it off some more. And then we can get the other one out and park it in here maybe or somewhere else. At least out of the way. This will probably unfold in standard farm fashion. The implement that's the farthest out of the way in the farthest back corner will have the flat tires and be the hardest one to fix. The tractor's coming right now, so I guess we'll have an answer here in a couple of minutes. Seemed good. This is probably not a good place to sit. Check the tires. That one's a little bit low on the far right. The problem with lifting it up all the way when you're pulling it out is even when the bottom wheels lift, the wing wheels shoot out too. You don't want to send those out and hit the side of the barn. Not that it'd be the first time we hit the barn today. Only a few low tires. You could almost go run it today if you wanted. Well, there's Chris finally showing up to work. They still haven't come to pick up our ripper, so I guess we're gonna move it. They said they haven't even set up the new one yet. A little wiggle, it's in. We don't need hydraulics because we're just moving it, we're not unfolding it. It was actually ready to go down the road. It's not really in the way that much, but come planting time, we'll have a lot of stuff parked here. We'll probably move it either over by the harvest doors or back on the lot behind. That way it's super out of the way. Looks like it's gonna be sitting by our head carts, blocking my quick access to this cornfield with the planter and Jeff and Nancy's view from their house. The boss makes the decisions though. Surely it won't roll. You go back! Whoa! Stand back in case it rolls. Nope, nothing. We're going to put the 9460R and the vertical till that's hooked up to it in the barn together. It'll probably be the first thing we use this spring. We did a lot of dirt work over the off season, and that may be the best tool to level it out before we hit it with the field cultivator. Other than that though, probably won't see much action. Kind of a tight fit. Again, we don't want to hit the planter. We have to pull up, straighten it out, and there should be a straight shot back. We got about 2 foot over here. Straight back! Get out of here, that way you don't get crushed. Good enough. We found a lot more space when we pulled out both of those field cultivators. Nothing takes up as much room as these 2 augers though. They may take up a quarter of the barn. This 9460R just got fueled up. We're gonna back it in out of the way and then pull in the 8310R and Exactamerge planter. If he doesn't hurry up, he's gonna get run over.
awfully snug up there.
Once the 4-wheel drives are hooked up to the field cultivators for good, we'll be parking the split row bean planter right there. Then we can get them both out without having to move anything. Only 10 o'clock, we've gotten a lot done already. Both of these field cultivators combined work to about 90 foot. Unless they get a head start, they can't keep up with that ExactEmerge planter. Of course, they can't move through the field as fast. It requires a lot more horsepower, but it's impressive how fast that planter is. And of course, we can't forget about our seed tenders. The real issue with these is whether or not they're going to start.
Press on?
Yep. That one's running. Make sure everything's off so the battery's not dead. Don't quite need to pull them out today, just gotta make sure they work. Someone did a good job parking those, Jeff. Was that you? We aren't going to worry about pulling the seed tenders out today. It's really not that crucial that they move from this spot until we need to fill them up with seed to fill our planters. As long as the batteries are in good shape, the seed tenders start, and all the other systems run, we can just pull in here, hook up to the hitch, attach our electrical wires, and be good to go. When we do pull them out for the first time, we do need to make sure the conveyor is all running right and everything's greased up. Nothing's too major with that though. Part of me is really hoping that we miss the majority of this rain they're calling for today and tonight, 1 to 2 inches in total. My prospects are not looking good because there's already rain falling on my truck. I was being 100% serious earlier when I said that if we miss the majority of this rainfall, we will be planting beans this weekend. I believe that March soybeans are a very viable option if you want to get out there and plant early. It's obviously a little bit of a risk. There's multiple weeks that you're going to be leaving them out on the ground. Who knows what's going to happen in April? If it turns off wet and cold, you may lose a lot of those beans. I would think that the soil environment right now is appropriate for seed germination. Once those plants get germinated, you really don't want to leave them in wet ground for 2 weeks before they get any kind of growth. We have had that happen in April multiple times, and there was no ill effect, or at least not any that we could see. Time will always tell which option you should have taken. I ran back to our farm with the tile problem to give you guys an update on where we probed it. A lot of the water had actually gone down in that hole, which confirms to us that the blockage theoretically should be somewhere between the blue flag and where it was bubbling up, which was right in this area. Unfortunately, due to the rain though, the water is not going to stay drained the way we were hoping. If this becomes a heavy rain, 1, we're not going to be planting, and 2, that pond over in the field that this is supposed to drain will fill back up with water, and this will reflood. Our worst case scenario right now is that if they finish fully locating all the cables and lines here, and there's not any, we will just bring the backhoe out and tear that section of tile out. We'll let all of the water basically either drain up on top and run over the farm here, or it'll find its way to where the rest of the unplugged tile is underground and make its way out. Then all that water should get down. We can hop in there and fix it with a new section of plastic tile, which is standard procedure for a tile hole. I think this rain may be for the best. It hasn't amounted to much yet. If it doesn't rain a considerable amount, we're gonna be planting here in the next week. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. That's such a relaxing sound, rain falling on a tin roof. I think I could curl up and take a nap right now. I'm sure some of you are probably pretty concerned about how little time we spent on the field cultivators earlier today. The amount of time that you saw us working on those field cultivators was literally how fast it went. We may have spent 15 to 20 minutes total hooking them up, pulling them out, unfolding them, and then unhooking them, because there's really not that much to do with them. We are very big believers in doing all of the work when it's nice out. In the case of the field cultivators, when we're done with them, it's usually June or July. Well, that's perfect time to work outside, fix and repair anything that needs to be done, change the sweeps, grease all the zerks, and repair any major damage. That way, early next spring of the following year, we don't have to do much wrenching to get them ready to go. It's not near as nice now as it will be in June. So we like to get everything done when it's not that hard to work outside. The same thing goes with all of our fall equipment. Typically, other than changing oil, we put those away pretty much out of the field. That way, come late summer, we can pull them out and work outside in great weather to fix everything that needs fixed. One thing we've yet to do with our planters is do a little bit of cable management on our hydraulic and electrical lines. We can't just leave these dangling all season. They'll rub against the metal and eventually that will cause them to blow. What we're going to do is strap this big group of hoses to the top of the 3-point. And I just so happened to get a package from Amazon with some new straps. And they're cool colors. They have carabiners on the end, that way they clip together without any problems. Out of respect, we'll look at the green one first. This is going to be much easier if I put the 3-point down first, so we're going to do that. I don't think the green's going to be short enough. What's the next size down? Orange is way too short. A goldish amber color, that should do it. See if we can manhandle these up and get the weight off on the 3-point. Nope, I don't think that's gonna work. Well, that's a start. That should keep all of our lines relatively safe from wear and tear. I don't know if we'll readjust some of these when we get out in the field and see more how it affects it as it's turning, going up and down, all that stuff. For now though, I think that's a pretty feasible solution. Unless the boss obstructs to something I did here. The one thing you try to be really cognizant of is trying not to pull these lines out. You really want to relieve as much outward force from these as possible. Like I said when I hooked them up, it only takes this vac return line about maybe a minute to dump out 5 to 10 gallons of oil. We'll put the 3-point on, see how it looks lifted up, and if that's fine, we'll move on to the next one. When it's folded up, it's still kind of rubbing here on the 2-point. Actually, you can see where it's rubbed in the past. That's the exposed metal braiding that allows these hydraulic lines to be so resistant to pressure. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to blow anytime soon, but that is a weak point. Everything else, though, looks to be pretty organized. Like I said, though, we may come back here next week and this will be completely different. Navigate our way through a nice, spacious barn. It's amazing how much difference pulling those 2 field cultivators made. Now we can kind of park everything willy-nilly. Gonna have to do the same deal on this one, lower the 3-point, that way I can work on it. Should be good. Other than touching a little bit here when it's all the way up, this should contain our lines on this tractor and planter pretty well. I'm not entirely sure about the angle I have on these lines right here. We may have to figure that out at some point. If it doesn't cause us any issues, we won't worry about it. With the rain coming down at a pretty steady pace now, that's going to be it for our work for the day. It doesn't quite sound like we're going to be planting this weekend, though anything is possible. Thank you all for tuning in and watching part 3 of our spring planting preparations videos. I hope to see you all around in the next episode. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great night, everyone. Peace!